Hey there, Rulers. Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will. It's a new school week, but if you need a little extra help with that assignment, you've come to the right place. It's Office Hours, our new show, casual chat with all kinds of Force of Will players, and I'm here joined tonight by, back again, Mike Rance.
Hi, friends.
Paul Reisman, still here.
Hello.
And returning after not being here for a very long time, Brandon Bremont. Welcome to the new show, buddy.
It's good to be back.
Before we get started, I want to go ahead and let you know that if you like what we're doing here, you want to click support and by clicking that subscribe button down below, as well as potentially clicking that join button, becoming a member here to support us financially on the channel. You get access to the chat, emotes, badges, all kinds of fun stuff on our shows that aren't this one. The chat is always open on this show for those who might have questions or want to share their thoughts. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and jump right in tonight. We're talking about spoilers. Last week we talked about red and white, the colors that everyone talks about all the time. This week we're talking about Force of Wind and is water maybe finally starting to look good? We're going to go ahead and jump right in here.
How disrespectful to Time Spinning Witch. That water's been the best deck.
That's fair. That's fair. Water has been...
Calling Witch a water deck? That's wrong.
So let's go ahead and jump right in. We have... Oh, first off, Tom Pizarro, welcome. Glad to watch your first FOW stream in forever. Thank you for choosing us to be the person that you decide to watch. We're
As opposed
glad.
to the other Force streams.
It's still nice that they chose us, Mike. Okay,
It's true.
we're happy to be able to provide this content. This is the wrong card. I was just so excited to talk about Elixir that I left Elixir on the screen. Hold on. We're talking about treasures tonight. First up, we have Jewel of the Panda King, our first of two treasures. We assume that there's probably a lot more, but we've seen two. Nice little shout out to Tigris here. 2 cost, double blue, quick cast, return target non-magic stone, non-J-ruler entity to its owner's hand, draw a card, shuffle this card into its owner's deck as it resolves. So,
Can I just say that the real treasure was the friends we made along the way, especially everybody in this chat room.
aww.
Love you all so much. Thank you all for being here.
You can't put that on the chase, but okay.
I'll just put a copy on the chase. It's fine.
Sure.
Tenderness results.
So I like
Cancel your love.
my first thought on the treasures is I really like the built-in clause of helping Selesta get them back into the deck where she wants them while still using them. And the fact that it replaces itself, like that to me, when we heard about Celesta's gimmick of like trying to draw off the top to get RFG'd, my thought was like, yeah, but what if it's in your hand? Like, is it going to be just ways to try to like draw and put stuff back or like replacements or stuff like that? The fact that you can still use them in your hand and then that doesn't waste them from being tapped into later for Selesta, I like that just as a whole.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I really like the fact that, like, on its face value, Jewel of the Panda King is like just kind of looks like a worse Bewildering Charm. Just doesn't have potential. Like, it hits anything really, but it doesn't do it for 1 mana, and it doesn't have the ultimate mode to draw a card. It's not a mage art, so a lot of that stuff. So on paper, it's worse than a card that's already in the New Frontiers format that it's being printed into. But when being cast for 1 every turn, that's when you start to kind of get the value train rolling, and that's kind of how I think it's really supposed to like work, especially because it also draws you a card on top of that. So like, it's really good.
Right. The draw a card part of this, I think, is the part that really gets me the most, because it makes me think that once Celeste gets this removed, and if she's a control deck that is really stabilized, this is the card that, regardless of the unsummon mode, is going to generate an extraordinary amount of advantage if she just gets to cast this for 1 every single turn. Even if she's not doing other like nonsense card advantage things like casting the next card we see every turn to like clear a resonator and draw a card for no cards. But this is what's really going to lock a control deck winning. Like, if you remember Scheherazade back in the day, Scheherazade could play this like really aggro, really tempo game, but barring that and against certain decks that were able to really clear the dolls, like there's the Mikage version and a Gil Lapis version that just like you can never stick resonators against. Cher's had this backup win where she flipped down Approaching the Truth and Ruin Story with Ruin Story every time and just drew infinite cards so that control decks could just never keep up with it. And so like this kind of reminds me of that. I mean, obviously it's not quite as ridiculous as Ruin Story like Scheherazade nonsense, but like it is that same level of like, I am going to drown you in card advantage if you do not stop me now.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think the only thing I have questions around is, I mean, there are so many targets for this for me to bounce back and put back in my opponent's hand, but I guess it really depends on, we have all these Regalia rulers that we put a Regalia back in their hands. They're just going to get more advantage out of that. So I don't know how I feel about that.
Something also really important to note about this card is the fact that you mentioned opponent, but it also doesn't specify to your opponent's, like a card your opponent
It could be
controls
yours too. Yeah.
Yeah. So bouncing Kiki back to your hand to just kind of stack your draws is also kind of nice.
Yeah.
Like, I think that could definitely be a big deal, and we're going to see Kiki later on, but like...
Yeah, for sure. I think the fact that, like, you know, kind of like Bremont said, like, at a core, you don't necessarily have to be giving your opponent advantage. You can use it on your turn as a protective plus, you know, get value engine, in the sense of like you can activate Selesta once it gets RFG'd, right? You can activate Celesta's effect on your turn at instant speed. So the idea of, you know, if you're trying to make a push and your opponent tries to respond, oh well, not only am I going to steal tempo from you because you're wasting a card and I'm going to make that not do what you wanted, but I'm also going to draw a card and I paid 1, and I can just do that again later.
And don't completely quote me on this. I'm actually just reading Celeste now, but I think this still works if you have no targets, because the way that she's worded is choose X cards from your removed area that were removed by an exploration ability you control. Put a copy of each of those cards on the chase. So when you would go to put a copy on the chase, you would choose targets, but you don't necessarily have to. Like, it will put targets on the chase anyway. If there is a target, you have to choose one, but you can still do this if there is nothing to target on the field, which in most cases is probably going to be the best thing for you anyway if you're like a grindy
it'll resolve as much as possible,
right? Because you're not actually casting it. You're just putting a copy onto the chase.
Don't super quote me on that, but I think that's how that works.
Yeah, I think so.
This card with Brandon Bremont's signature saying this works exactly as intended.
There we go.
Just as Dr. I intended.
Speaking of our next treasury that Brandon already kind of mentioned, we got Mermaids Thunder Parasol. Shout out to all those Shayla lovers out there. Cough, cough, Paul Reisman. Cough, cough.
Love you.
So it says this card deals 400 damage for each card in your hand to target J/Resonator. Shuffle this card into its owner's deck as it resolves. This one does not replace itself in terms of being able to draw cards, but like if we're already looking at
replace itself, it's a card in your hand and you got rid of a card that they did, so that's 1-for-1 that replaced itself just fine.
It's a net zero, right? We lost Mike Rance. He'll come back. So I like this card a lot, particularly because in the early game, even in the early game, as a 1-cost removal spell, like your hand's probably going to be very full of cards. So like this is going to deal a lot of damage. And then the later on, you know, if we talk about even just having the 2 treasuries that we've seen so far, Jewel of the Panda and this sitting in your yard, right? So like you'll pay 2, which is what you would be doing for Jewel of the Panda Prince anyway. And then you can choose to put Parasol, like the copy of Parasol, underneath the copy of Jewel. So then you're just like, okay, bounce a thing, draw a card, and then thunder you. And it's just like, oh, I also drew a card, so now this Parasol's even better. So they like synergize really well there when they get RFG'd. And even just as like actual blue removal, like blue has always been the bounce. Like blue, this is a blue card that says like, I'm gonna kill that, which has never really been blue's thing.
Yeah, and keep in mind that it's not like you need a loaded hand for this. Like the white and the red rulers both have 1200 defense on their side. That's only 3 cards. So like, I mean, as long as, especially if you're casting this from your removed area, so like it's not even like one of the cards down that you're casting, you're almost always going to kill basically anything important with this. Like I wouldn't worry too much about the number of cards nonsense.
Right, I agree.
The one thing I really want to do with this card is play it in Eternal formats. Get a handful of like 10 cards, hit a Volga on board, and just slap it for 4,000. Because that just sounds like something really fun, and that's what I want to do in this game. I just want to make my opponent feel bad by hitting them with 10 cards in my hand and a 4,000 damage Volga trigger.
So there is one thing that we have a question here is, would the copy still make you shuffle? So like we put a copy on the chase, it says shuffle this card into your deck as it resolves, but if it's not a card, you have nothing to shuffle, so it shouldn't shuffle so it shouldn't actually shuffle your deck. Because if they force a shuffle,
I'm gonna chalk that one up to a wait for the CR.
Yeah, I think that'll be another. The company, arguably, the company has been very good in the past couple sets at putting out this nice little Q&A document, either like within a week of set release of like, hey, here's all the questions we've been hearing. Here's some clarifications. So like that's definitely one that I can work to make sure it gets addressed to kind of clarify. My understanding would be if there's no reason to change the order of your deck because you're not putting into anything, like, then you shouldn't have to.
I think the reason for the shuffle is having something to shuffle into the deck. If there's
nothing to shuffle, then you wouldn't.
Yeah, it doesn't say put this card into your deck, then shuffle your deck.
Right. Yeah, so maybe we'll see. That's a good question though. We'll definitely follow up on that one. I'm really excited. I mean, we'll probably talk about it more if we get those cards soon, but like we're probably going to see a Keurig treasure and we're probably going to see a Gil treasure maybe, but we'll see. We'll have to see, and we'll have to see if they stay blue. That'll be interesting to me too.
IU treasure, baby, let's go.
Stop it.
You're not thinking we're going to see a Rhea treasure?
Well, Rhea wasn't natural to that timeline, so that's why it's like...
Rhea is a treasure. She's a card.
Speaking of a treasure, speaking of a card, let's talk about the blue Marvel rare, Kiki.
Oh, the baby.
Everybody say hello to Cheshire Cat.
Cheshire Cat. You
Kiki.
look way worse now.
So this is... So it's a split card. It has the resonator mode is prevent all non-battle damage that would be dealt to this card. On enter, draw 2 cards, put a card from your hand on top of your deck. Cough, cough, like a treasure you want to explore. While this card is revealed from your deck by the exploration ability you control, you may play it without playing its cost. And then Kiki's Exploration is the spell side. Quick cast for 1. Shuffle this card into your deck. Then Exploration 4. So I do want to clarify a couple things before we get into discussion of this card. So 1, the clarifying how Exploration works is you look at the number of cards indicated by the Exploration. You then you may choose 1 card and reveal that 1 card. And then, if it's a treasure, it gets RFG'd. Otherwise, you've just revealed it. Good job. And then everything else gets put back on the bottom of the deck. So, that being said, that's what it means by if this card is the card you reveal. However, it has been ruled so far by the German judge team that paying its cost applies to either side of the Kiki, which means that you could do the shuffle it into your deck and Exploration 4, which, if that ruling stands, makes this card very, very good for Selesta, even better than it already was, because it means that if you whiff, but there's a Kiki, cool, try again, right? Gives you an extra chance. But even just by itself, it's good. Like, free Cheshire Cats are pretty good.
Yeah.
The dangerous thing about 1 mana spells that you're playing more for the spell effect and then it's got a small body is that when it gets blocked, sometimes they can just remove it and then get the block through. But the fact that this doesn't take non-battle damage means that things like Thunder or Parasol won't force an attack through. So that's actually a pretty good line of text to have on a 0/1 that you're playing for the spell effect. And then also Explore 4 seems like a lot. Celeste doesn't naturally get that until 4 stones, which is pretty late for Force of Will. And so even just casting this, and it's got quick cast, you hold up a Thunder Parasol or something, if they do nothing with it, you can just cast the Kiki's Exploration mode, hit the Explore. The other thing is that Celeste can only explore on her own turn naturally, so quick cast effects with Explore are very good because it doubles the rate at which you're getting treasures removed for her. And so I think this card's really good. I'm a little... wishy-washy on Marvel rares being an auto 4 in certain decks. I just think that can sometimes be a little unfortunate, but besides that, this card's insane. Celeste always plays 4 of it, no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that this, so far of the Marvel rares, this is the Marvel rare that from this set that sees the easiest time being slotted into any other deck. because again, at its core, it's a mini Cheshire. It's not as good as OG Cheshire because it doesn't shuffle itself in when it dies, and it doesn't have that hexproof, right? But like, it's a mini Cheshire, and even back in the day, you had decks who played blue just for Cheshire. So that's definitely something that makes Kiki, I think, in my opinion, stand out from Rhea and the Fox. Is like, this card I can see comfortably seeing play outside of Selesta without a second thought.
Yeah, I can see it.
Paul, you got any
Art's
thoughts?
just really good.
I mean, y'all pretty much said it. I mean, I look at this and I didn't play Forcible when we had Cheshire Cat. Oh wait, no, I did. I came in an Alice cluster,
Right.
but I didn't own Cheshire Cat, so I never played them, right? So when I look at this and I think of it being a Marvel rare, and I think of it kind of being similar to that Cheshire Cat, I still have that thing in the back of my head that's like, hold on, am I gonna need this card in order to be competitive or to play this deck really well? Kind of like what Brandon was saying. And so there's a little bit of worry there for me, but for the most part, I mean, it's a phenomenal card. I mean, you all said it. Plus, it's not wearing pants, so it basically is a Cheshire Reaper.
Oh shit!
Wow.
Paul really just blew my mind on that.
Bringing
one.
it in. I will say to speak to that kind of concern that, you know, it's been nice to see that Force of Will with Marvel Rares has still kept to the buy X amount of boxes your set. I get that is a hindrance to some players to just straight buy boxes, but the side effect has been that also because there's 5 full art Marvel Rares in a God pack, like Marvel Rares even at the full art level, at least from AO4, have like capped out at like 30s. I think Schrodinger full art is a 30 and it's the highest, but like you can pick up Yggdrasil's full art for 18s, Yggdrasil's non-full art for 6s. So which means that like if we're talking about Kiki being a card that you play outside of everything, so that like high utility, non-full arts are probably going to settle somewhere between 15 to 20, and Cheshire Cat in its peak was like 60s, 70s for like base rare Cheshires. So the fact that like Kikis are probably going to be able to pick up a full playset for what you would have paid for one Cheshire is nice to think about, and probably going to be true.
Real talk. Can we talk about the fact that in the first picture, Kiki's got a bunch of treasures and he's wearing a bow tie, but the bow tie is also being worn in the artwork for the second part, which means that he just naturally wears that bow tie wherever he goes. It's not even a treasure.
Yeah,
that's something really important. Also, what is it attached to? How does he wear that? It's just a bow
fur.
tie.
It's just fur. It's a clip-in.
Yeah.
Clip into the fur, bro.
You think that somebody as high roller as Kiki would wear a clip-on bow tie?
Yep.
Do you want me to lay on you guys the secret Celeste tech that's kind of like under wraps right now?
Yeah, I like it.
NSA headquarters. So it lets you foresee one, right? So you foresee one, and you can know whether or not there's a treasure on top. You can keep that treasure or put it on the bottom for next one. Always hit your treasures. You heard it here first, folks.
NSA headquarters. There you go.
Friend, I hate you so much.
There it is.
No idea.
There it is. So let's
Game.
move on to our next card here. This is Insatiable Desire for Treasure. It is 2 blue, quick cast. Your opponent reveals the top 7 cards of their deck. If none of them share a name, you may play one from among them without paying its cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your opponent's deck in a random order. So clearly this is designed to be a anti-Ragnarok card, because I don't think there's
draft bomb.
Also, Draft Bomb. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. This card is nuts in draft. I don't think there's ever been a time in Forcible history against a deck that's not a singleton that you could be like, oh yeah, I think I could comfortably get you to reveal 7 individual cards. Like, it's not castable against any... It's not castable. So, against... Brandon, I want to hear some of your thoughts on this, because we were talking about this a little bit before, and I think you bring up some really good points about this card when you're considering it versus Ragnarok.
Seems really bad. So like, what? And I posed this thought experiment earlier that was like, what's the very best thing you hit off of this? Right, like your 2 mana. They hit what Kusanagi Makoto, which you're not even certain that Ragnarok is playing. Like I don't know. It just seems like you're not terribly often in Force of Will playing cards that are worth more than 2 mana anyway, and in just traditional Force of Will fashion. Like, and I know that Ragnarok is singleton, so like he's gonna have to make some more more egregious cut decisions. But like the fact of the matter is, it's just not realistic to play more than a 2 or 3 mana card in Force of Will for the most part, and especially if Ragnarok ends up being a really controlling deck, which it seems like the card indicates like it wants to be. Then that's going to have a lot of disruption type stuff, a lot of card draw stuff, none of which you really want to hit off of Insatiable Desire for Treasure. The card reads like, oh wow, I look at the top 7 cards of your deck and I get a free one from among them. Like, it's not free though. You still paid 2 for it, so like you're paying 2 for the best of the top 7 cards of a singleton deck, and it's not even taking it out of their hand or anything, so it's not like they're actually really losing anything. That card that you picked might have just as likely been in the bottom 7, so it's not like you're truly disrupting them. I just don't think this card seems insane unless, like, I mean, of course, we could end up seeing Ragnarok, have some kind of theme like the Giants that Loki was playing in those earlier sets where they're like huge, expensive things that have smaller effects, and that ends up being a Ragnarok theme. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Like, I don't actually have any evidence to think that's true. But, like, if for some reason Ragnarok is incentivized to play expensive things, then maybe this is okay. But from my understanding of Ragnarok right now, this just seems egregiously bad. Like, not even a good sideboard card against him.
Yeah.
Brandon, riddle me this. Just thought experiment. The paying for without paying its cost. If you're playing this quick cast speed and you hit something that isn't quick cast speed, you can't play that, right? Like if you're playing it on your opponent's turn.
You could. It would
play it without.
Yeah. You play it. It's not cast, so you can play it. Even if it's not quick cast.
It would ignore timing. It would ignore timing. Just like Scheherazade could ignore timing.
BM though is if they're playing like defensive stance or whatever, they cast a thing, then you Insatiable Desire for Treasure in response get their defensive stance and cancel it. Now that would be really funny.
So
I
think to me, I think this card works best to hinge on that quick cast element of using it kind of like right at the end of a Ragnarok's turn to get the most value, because you also want to be, the thing about it to me is this card also to me sounds a little bit like pay to remove one of Ragnarok's modes. And hear me out on this, like Ragnarok only gets 6 modes, but it costs him more each time he uses it. So say they do the like stupid early thing that they want to be doing of like turn 1, 0 produce 2, they use like 2 or 3 of their modes very, very quickly. And none of those are the remove all resonator modes. Then like pay 2, quick cast, get a huge body, go to your turn, immediately be able to use it. It kind of, and put a lot of pressure on Rag. It kind of tells Rag like, okay, cool. You're going to have to use your next choice to remove this, which then makes your other choices more awkward. If Ragnarok's playing that way, I don't think you necessarily have to play Ragnarok that way.
You still just use the card. So like imagine that exact same scenario, except that I just paid 2 mana for a threat that you have to remove. Like it's the same formula.
Sure.
Like I used 2 mana and a card from my hand to put pressure on Ragnarok. I used 2 mana and a card from my hand to put pressure on Ragnarok. Like I don't think it actually makes a difference. In terms of
I think
like what you suggested.
The thing to me, I think also, I think when I'm thinking about that as different as what you're just describing is that I'm also taking that card out of Ragnarok's deck. And so for me, I think
that's completely meaningless.
Like not only is
singleton deck.
Well, because also then now Ragnarok doesn't have access to that threat against me is my thought. Again, I think in having this conversation, I'm definitely not viewing this card as highly as I initially was, for the reasons that you're pointing out. But I'm not quite ready to completely write it off yet. So
like this idea of removing the threat from Ragnarok's deck is only ever relevant in respect to their lack of an ability to tutor for it if that ends up coming up. And I imagine there'll be some of that to some respect, but in general, just removing a card and functionally random, like you're only looking at 7 cards, so it's not if there is a single like one of bomb that they absolutely need to tutor and win or something like that. It's not like you're always going to hit that anyway. But even if that was the case, which it probably isn't, like you did not remove a card from their hand. Like they did not lose card advantage from this. So it's not like the lack of access to that matters. Like that card you picked might have just as well been on the very bottom of their deck the whole game. Like it doesn't
absolutely correct.
How that can function.
And Loken makes a good point is a lot of singleton decks are going to focus hard on redundancy. So like, again, I definitely view this card not as highly as I did when it first got spoiled for a lot of the reasons that we talked about. It's just we'll have to see exactly where it falls in that position.
I'm probably gonna eat my words, and Ragnarok's gonna end up having some colorless ramp theme, like the freaking Ghost in the Shell deck, and they're gonna play all these 10 and 12 drops, and I'm just gonna look like an idiot here in a couple of years. But keep in mind that when I said this, we don't know what Ragnarok does.
Right, we literally have not seen a single piece of Ragnarok support. Quickly want to go so that we kind of can get to green here quickly. Next up we have Mirage, the Fantasy Queen. So it's 2 blue. She says whenever you draw a card, put 2 +1/+1 counters on this card, and you may pay 2 blue less to play cards named 4C. And then we see 4C in its mage art form reprinted as the second half of this card. I think this card is okay at best. I think we've already, particularly because we've already seen blue have a lot of other ways to be able to draw cards. 4C's not super great, and like +1/+1 counters on a body that doesn't have any way to protect itself is like, yeah, okay. You can make it very huge, and I can just pocket remove it for 1, like whatever.
Yeah,
Parasol has never been kind to just dummy thick resonators, which is what this like sort of thinks it might be, but still probably isn't. So,
something really important to note about this card, though, is that it's not whenever you draw any number of cards; it's whenever you draw a card. So, casting a 4C off of this is exactly +4 +1/+1 counters.
Yep.
So, like, it's not like it's not going to scale quickly, and it definitely left unchecked, it'll go out of control probably.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, it doesn't say whenever you draw a card, outside of your draw phase, so your draw's already going to be 1. Just finding any way to just nab a bunch of cards, which we've seen blue do, but not quite to the extent that I think you need to see it.
Limited. This card is potentially very, very big and limited based on how much.
It's going to be really big and limited. It's huge and limited.
In terms of
it's
how much.
It's also a super rare, so it's probably not.
Probably deserves to be there.
That being said, it shouldn't be a super rare, just like Brandon said. It should be a rare or lower, if anything. So it shouldn't be a super rare, in my opinion.
We talked a little bit about this in the pre-show, but the only thing that's like moderately interesting about this card, I don't actually think this card is that interesting, but like the fact that you can play now 8 4Cs and then she makes 4C free. You can kind of do this funny thing where you play Mirage, and if you have just a whole deck full of 4Cs and a handful of 4Cs, they chain together. So like you cast your 4C, draw, cast your 4C, draw. Now you might have drawn into another 4C again. And so then and because you're playing 8 of them, that's 1/10 of your deck. And then if you have any other ways to like loop draws or make things cheaper, she like gets through your deck at a somewhat impressive speed. But the fact of the matter is this is Force of Will, and like cards are very rarely what you're gated on. Like it's much more about mana and tempo. So like drawing half your deck isn't as impressive in this game as it would be in Force of Will, except that you do have Mirage, so you now have like a infinity Mirage, so that's like kind of cool. But
yeah, just gotta find a way to protect
it. I don't actually think that's
just gotta find a thing. Just gotta find a good thing for swiftness.
Yeah. Or I mean, comboed with
that dive resonator that gives swiftness.
There you go.
Comboed with white with gaining her +1/+1s. We do have the rapid growth that gives her barrier and eternal, since she'll have +1/+1s.
Congratulations, you've just built a worse Ouroboros-Zuki combo.
Yep.
Correct.
Let's go on to another card that is probably not really important. We have Appraisal of Treasures. It is a 1 blue 4 colorless card that says you may pay 1 colorless less to play this card for each treasure in your removed area that was removed by an exploration. Reveal the top card of your deck, count the number of will symbols on it, draw X cards where X is the number of will symbols you counted this way. So not only is it super expensive, but it is random as hell unless you're doing a lot of pre-work, at which point in time you probably didn't need to be drawing cards anyway to maybe draw cards. This card is bad.
Imagine being Celeste, having 4 treasures removed, and still feeling like you need a card advantage engine.
Yeah, exactly. Card is bad.
I just can't wait for the split card that has 5 will symbols on the front side, 5 will symbols on the bottom. You reveal it off this card, draw 10. That's the memes that I'm looking for.
Well, when you just put 20 counters on your Mirage.
Whoa! Crazy. Then we'll use Celeste to do her exploration trigger to draw more cards and get the blocker out of the way. We've done it.
The most important things on this card are A, the fact that you can meme really hard with it.
Yes.
B, the fact that this guy has a great beard, and see, we have another picture of Kiki's bow tie, and we just get to see the side view of it, and there's clearly nothing tied around it. There's nothing clipping onto it. I don't know how it's staying there. I don't get it. It's a mystery. It's gonna.
The alternate art for Kiki is just gonna be Kiki without a bow tie. It's gonna be.
Don't say that.
And it's gonna be just as scandalous as pantsless Cheshire.
Oh baby.
Moving on from this card.
That Chippendale squirrel, baby.
Moving on from this card, we have our dragon. 5 cost flying, 1 blue less for each treasure you have in a removed area that was removed by an exploration. Enter, return up to 2 target non-magic stone, non-Jade Ruler entities your opponent controls to their owner's hand and draw a card. So this card, I think, benefits the most from some of the things that Brayden talked about earlier, of anything that's instant speed exploration during your opponent's turn will definitely help this card, because otherwise this card is going to take a long time to boot up. I definitely think that its enter effect is probably like just by itself the best of the dragons we've seen so far, because like red dragon has to have damaged resonators to really do anything. White dragon is literally a vanilla essentially, just with simple skills, and then this puts stuff up. I don't know, thoughts?
So, as I was kind of alluded to earlier, in Force Will, you're not typically gated by cards, you're gated by mana. So one of the ways to benefit off of draw a billion cards is to have 0 mana 16, 17 flyers. And so I think this card is actually kind of cool because it turns card advantage into actual game advantage if you have the 5 removed treasures. I do not know how hard or ridiculous that's going to end up being, but the way I'm envisioning Selesta kind of happening is you play a control game for the first 5 or 6 turns of the game, exploring every time, hoping to get some explore triggers on their turn if there's more of those abilities, eventually getting 4 or 5 treasures removed, and then drowning your opponent in insurmountable card advantage, trolling a bunch of wise dragons that cost 0 so you can play them and keep up your control effects, and then winning the game while protecting those dragons is kind of what I'm thinking. And in that world, yeah, this card seems pretty good. You play it for nothing when you have a loaded hand. You reset any aggression that they had on you at all. You feel pretty good because it's going to basically win any creature-based combat. It doesn't have barriers, so it will still die to things, but maybe blue will have some ways to protect it when you're holding up the mana that you did not spend on it. I don't know. I think it seems really good, though.
Yeah, this card's like actually fantastic. I've already kind of thought of like the dream scenario, kind of big quotes around the dream. It's basically just like turn 1 exploration, find the thing. Turn 2 Kiki's exploration, explore, reveal a thing, remove it. Turn 2 reveal the card from exploration. Oops, 3 things removed. Dragon. Like that's like
turn 2 dragon.
True, best possible scenario you can do for it, which is not easy to do, obviously.
Right.
Because you need a lot of setup. But at the same time,
for sure,
if you hit it, you hit it. It's really, really good. Even at like 3 mana, this thing's really good. Even like going into turn 4, casting this thing for 2.
Yeah,
as we said, it's just like it's just so much.
Even as a 3 drop, because it can hit non-resonate, like it can hit additions, it can hit regalia. Like you got to think about it this way: 3 mana bounce a thing was actually a tempo card that like almost made it into playability in Force of Will's history. I mean, sure, the game has definitely sped up since then, but now we have a potential 3-drop big flyer that can bounce 2 things that isn't a resonator and replaces itself. Like, yeah, okay, I would spend 3 on that. Like, so, I mean, based on the scenario, obviously, like if it's the card to play, it's the card to play. So I think, again,
also, real talk, this thing being able to cost 0 in the late game means that you just, play it, bounce something your opponent controls, cast the Panda spell, bring it back to hand, play it again, and just keep doing that forever. Like,
yeah, you're not wrong. You can.
That seems really good to me.
Yeah, as a control finisher, I think Wise Dragon is very, very nicely set up to do that.
I'd love to see some blue quick cast give something barrier though, or maybe blue counter spells of some measure. Like,
sure.
Because like the fact of the matter is, this does just kind of die, which sucks. But maybe it doesn't.
Baby.
We'll have to see if any of the treasures is a cancel.
It really wouldn't work anyway, because you can only cast them during your turn. But yeah,
as a protection, right, to keep it safe. But you're right that you can't do it during your opponent's turn; they just remove it then, right? But Okay, moving on. Paul, any thoughts on Blue Dragon Boy?
Yeah, I mean, the more I read him and the more I look at him and kind of the whole gimmick behind Celeste, the more I feel like this is what Shayla always wanted to be. Like, there's just this gimmick, and there's always this bounce and burn capability and the cantripping, which is what I really liked about her play style, but she was just never good enough to actually be competitive. But Celeste is definitely managing to produce some sort of support that is not only impactful, but it's actually manageable and free to use. And so Wise Dragon reminds me a lot of, it's an Aqua Ripple Mermaid, the 3-drop that you're referring to, the one that bounces. It was only good when it was thunderstorming or when it was raining. And so if it was never raining, I couldn't actually use this thing effectively. And
we lost Fremont. Keep it going.
So like I didn't even want to use it, but like in this situation, it's that but better, and I'm just playing my win condition.
Yeah,
which is exactly what Blue has always wanted.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Next, a hot take. I actually think Sherry was pretty broken back in its day. It just happened to get all of its broken stuff in the same set that Scheherazade came out.
Oh, Thunderstorm?
So never got to actually look good. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thunderstorm definitely made Shayla a lot better, but then Sherry was like, no. I get an extra deck. So next up we have the Water Spirit of the Lamp. This is a 3-blue flying spirit. It says when this card is revealed from your deck by an exploration ability you control, you may pay it without paying its cost. Again, this means that you have to actively choose this card to reveal over something like a treasure to make it so that you have a 3. I like this card for a couple of reasons. We were talking a little bit. I'll let you kind of hash out your thoughts on this one, Mike. But Brandon, you and I are kind of in the same opinion that maybe this is like, if you're playing this kind of control variant, then you maybe like you don't really want to draw it, but you also don't really want to like mulligan it. So it's maybe a card that you play as like a 2 of just to kind of fill in some gaps in case you whiff on a treasure or a Kiki, because like it's nice to make it so that you're always getting something off an exploration, even if it's not the most optimal thing, which I think this card would do nicely. I mean, putting out a 9/9 flyer is like, that's a threat. Like, your opponent has to spend some time answering it, at least one card, right? And if I paid 0 to explore and hit this, then I paid 0 for a 9/9 flyer. Seems fine. But it's not something I want to do online.
Just doesn't really exist in a world where Farisha exists is the problem.
Sure.
Because like either side of Farisha deals with this, and Farisha has flying. So like I don't actually think the body is super relevant with the way the meta works right now. I misunderstood this card when I first read it, though. I didn't realize Explore you only revealed 1 card. I thought like this, if this was in the pool of Explore, that you just got it, but that is not the case.
No.
That made this card way worse, in my opinion.
Yeah. The speed at which you changed your opinion from auto 4 of to okay maybe 2 was like Mike on the other hand has a very different take on this that I'm interested to hear.
I think this card, like obviously if you're playing the control version of Celesta, you really do not want to be playing this card. Again, as I think Brandon already touched on it very well, that Faricia is going to be super dominant. The fact that she's just an immediate answer to this thing is really, really strong. But I think that the choice to open with this card and Kiki on turn 1, play the Kiki, stack this, explore, reveal this, and put it into play, guaranteed for the 9/9 buy is actually really important. Your opponent can obviously have an answer to it, but by that point, they're going on to turn 2, they play a 2-drop, and you're like, all right, cool. Now I have a 0/1 and a 9/9 flyer with a couple of cards out of hand to try and answer it. Mm-hmm. And when that becomes the case, it's just like, if there's a time where blue gets more tempo forward cards, or cards, even just playing this card with like a couple of small little just like buff cards on top of it, like we have a +8/+8 card from the last set, just putting that on top of this thing after playing it turn 1, I could see like a blue-black Celesta, like an aggro deck essentially come out of it.
For sure. Absolutely.
Like there's so much possibility, there's so much like the ceiling that you can hit with this card is really high if you hit it early enough and your opponent doesn't have the answers for it. Again, it's not guaranteed to get it, obviously. It's not like you play this card and you auto win if you get it on turn 1. 1-mana 9/9s do not go as far as you think they would.
Yeah, I think this is a card that like looks very different in application based on how you choose to play Selesta.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is fun. I think that's nice.
That's really good design, in my opinion. Actually,
It's also a panda ghost pirate riding a dolphin. So like,
I don't know if it's a panda or if it's just like the way that the design looks, because it's like a skeleton thing.
yeah. Don't tell Brandon Alvarez. He's very excited about me. Or I think that's
There
who
are
always
there are 3
hardcore
guarantees in
diggers.
this universe: death, taxes, and Brandon Alvarez talking about panda on Force Will posts.
Yep. Okay, so we're out of blue at this point. So now we're gonna jump into green. For the sake of it, let's go ahead and start right off with our Marvel rare here. So this is Altasing, the mischievous boy. Also, before we get into any of this, the fact that Force of Will decided to put into the lore a magical academy and no one reached out to me for the Ruler School logo offends me greatly. Soapbox over. So this is Altasing, mischievous boy. He is. I'm also going to call him Mini Feethite because he's mini feasting and he's mini Lorite. On his Resonator side, he's a 2-cost. He's a 2-cost quick cast that says enter prevent to all damage that would be dealt by target J/Resonator until end of turn. That's the Feasting side. And you can pay 1 green to have the effect of returning him to his hand. You may pay 2 less to play cards named A Glimpse of the Prodigy until end of turn. A Glimpse of the Prodigy is a 3-cost quick cast chance that says cancel target spell or automatic ability, aka Mini Lorite. Lorite. This is a good card. Like I don't think anyone can look at this card and go, oh yeah, maybe. I think this card is just straight good.
You have the effect to prevent all damage that be dealt by something that Belfi had for the same amount of mana, for less stats, and with the need for Torrent, but without obviously the ability to produce mana, which is why she was used. But you trade that off for pretty good card.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that there's obviously the gameplay pattern of play this for its nega thing, and then just kind of sit on it until you want to cancel something, bounce it, and cancel it. There's also kind of a third mode, which is bounce it to play it for the Resonator mode again. And so, like, if you have 3 mana, you can just kind of lock down one entity they control indefinitely, and like they can never do damage with it, which is kind of funny. But of course, the cancel mode is also very good. Oh, and by the way, the cancel only costs 2 while it's sitting on the field, despite what it might look like, because you can activate the bounce mode twice. So you pay green, activate the bounce, hold priority, pay green, activate the bounce. The bounce resolves, the second ability resolves, and now it costs 4 less to cast cards named that, and then you can cast it for free. So don't let the card deceive you. You can still cast it for 2.
It's very interesting. Like in a Welser deck, that only really matters if you have more than 1 copy of him in your hand, because what he says is it doesn't say cast the next copy of, it's just like that card's named that costs less for the rest of the turn. So if you're playing it as Welser, sorry, let me rephrase that. It doesn't really matter if you're playing it as Welser that way, unless you have multiple copies, because if you cast it for free, Welser will recover a stone. If you don't do the double, if you just pay the 1 to put it back in your hand, you cast it for 1, you've spent 2, Welser recovers the stone, you're still at having cast it and 1 will up anyway. So it's weird that like in Welser that double up doesn't really matter for the most part, but outside of Welser,
the double up makes it cost 1 total because you cast the cancel spell for 0 and then recover a stone. So it kind of nets you a mana besides the 2.
Well, no, it doesn't, because you paid 2 to put it back in your hand twice.
Right. I meant like when you cast it for 0, you're up 1, but you already paid 2 for it. So in all, you're going to be down 1 mana over the transaction.
It's either way. Either way in Welser, if it's the first chant you cast as Welser, either path you end up with 1 recovered stone after paying a total of 2 will and burning the 1 card.
I'm assuming you already have Altasing on the field.
So I'll break it down for you. So Altasing.
Okay.
So Altasing on the field. we're showing either path as Welser, right? So Altising on the field, we pay 1 will, so we're down to bring it back to our hand. Then we pay a will to cast him, so we paid 2 will. Listen. I'm telling the spell itself only costs 1. If you only bounce him back to your hand once. It's a 3-cost spell with its cost reduced by 2, so it costs us 1 to recast it. So we paid 1 to put him back into our hand. We pay 1 to cast the spell, and then Welser will recover that stone. So we have still recovered 1 stone. And then so we have net 1 after casting it. If we do if you're doing what you're talking about, is that you pay 2 to put him back into your hand, and then you pay it for free and recover 1 stone. So you have still paid 2, cast the spell, and recovered 1 stone. The advantage for the mode that you're talking about is the fact that other future copies of the spell for the turn would be technically free.
And the advantage of your mode is actually nothing. So you should always do the thing I'm suggesting.
In both situations that were for sure. I guess that the only situation the only situation where I could be concerned about bouncing it twice is like now I spent 2, and if they have a removal spell in response, I'm out 2 will as opposed to only out 1. But because you've spent 2 to try to bounce it, and then they just kill it, and then you don't get it back to your hand. So
right, I mean you didn't get it back to your hand anyway if you only paid the 1. So like if you were planning on casting it for nothing, like, you're still down the same amount of mana.
Math.
Okay.
Card is good. We are all on the same page.
The last important, very, very important thing, obviously I have to address to the meme lords for the Eternal formats. Notice how this card does not say an automatic ability your opponent controls. It just says an automatic ability. So, yeah, baby. That's what we're talking about.
Logan does talk about bring up an interesting point that if you do get Welser to 10 flips, Altising is cancel everything your opponent does infinitely, because you just cast the chant and bring it back to your hand, and cast the chant, bring it back to your hand. It doesn't really matter. So that's an important piece to note here. Don't let Welser get to 10 stones, because then he'll just cancel everything. Maybe that's the win con. We were wondering how Welser wins. That's it. Just make it so you cancel everything.
Make your opponent unable to play the game.
Speaking of Welser cards, we also have Unceasing Wind, 1 green, quick cast, draw a card, then put this card on top of your deck.
Seems okay.
Seems terrible.
Yeah, it seems not great. Unless you're going for like what seemed, which we'll talk about this later. Unless you're going for something like Welser seems to be this idea of like spells building on top of each other, kind of like almost like a storm style, and so like maybe this is helpful for that, but like it doesn't, because like then your next draw has to be that it feels weird. Weird.
Feels like it's a worst Whispers of the Wind.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to describe it.
Yeah,
I would agree.
It does.
I don't really want to keep drawing this card.
This card is like almost thinkable if it didn't put itself back on top of the deck, but that is a downside. And not only is it a downside, it's a very big downside. So
Unless you're trying to stop yourself from decking out.
Nah.
It doesn't actually slow that though, right? Because like you drew a card and then put this back on top.
I mean,
right?
If you have no cards left in your deck, then you fail to draw, and then it goes back to the top of your deck, right?
Oh, yeah, technically that's true.
That's true.
Cast it during your end phase.
I'll literally just play it. I'll just literally play it in draft to not lose. Build a 20-card deck, put that in there. Easy game, easy life.
Just cycle that 1 card. You only lose if you can't draw for the draw phase of your turn. Anything else doesn't matter.
The only problem is that the blue ruler can do the same thing, right? Because she can cast the shutters that shuffle back into her deck every turn.
Listen, you don't need to tell me this.
Moving on, we're going to talk about Elixir. So this is Elixir. Elixir, the Crest Researcher. 1 green, 4/4. Enter, search your deck for a magic crest and reveal it. Put it into your hand. So we can safely assume that most likely the magic crests are being reprinted.
Magic crest.
And then pay 1 green and tap to put magic crest from your hand into the field. So Welser, OG Welser support. Sure, I'm about it.
And we think it's the same as the original crest. All those.
That would be the question, right? If it is the same as the original ones, then like this just makes Green Crest playable.
The Windcrest ramps a stone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is Windcrest ramps a stone into play recovered, so definitely makes that card playable. And then the other mode is I can't remember. Research results. It is look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may reveal up to 2 non-resonator cards from among them. Put them into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your deck in any order. I think this card was. Go ahead.
We've talked about how forcing you drawing 2 cards for 2 is not good, so the second effect is not good. Oh my god, the elixir part's so cool. Like, it's not quite the same thing as having like a hot springs for crests, but it's basically like having a hot springs for crests.
Yeah,
that doesn't need any setup to it. Like, that's really, really cool to me. I really like that.
Are we like, how confident are we that the crests are the original ones? Like, is it like, I feel like we're jumping the gun a little bit on this analysis here.
Oh yeah, we don't know.
The crests are different and better, then this card is better, and if they're the same ones, then the wind one is fine, I guess. But like, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think that it is heavily based on whether the crests are new or old. I do think that the wording on research results was very nicely done in the fact that this will never be able to grab a split card, because technically a split card, while it's in the deck, it is both a resonator and a chant, and this card specific.
Thank goodness they missed that.
I mean, it just means that like you can't pay 2 and grab 2 Alta Sinks into your hands. I just think it's nice. I appreciate these kinds of things because the community complains about them, and then I hear about it all the time. Okay, I'm allowed to have little victories.
A legendary balance team rearing its head again.
Listen, you guys thought you could get these split cards. Well, guess what, bud? You really just can't.
No fun allowed.
Not allowed.
Your back, Force the Will community.
Oh my god.
Next card. 2 more to go. Another split card. Spirit of the Soul.
Wait, we skipped over Elixir's Love.
Oh yeah, that's true. I guess we can go back. You mean 200
IQ?
IQ?
About this one.
200 IQ, but better.
400 IQ, buddy.
So 1 green, 1 colorless Remnant. Put target chant from your graveyard into your hand.
Spinning Aqua Soul, except it costs twice as much, and Spinning Aqua Soul is barely playable ever. So. Oh, but this actually is Welser. Well, okay, but Welser triggers off of this, so maybe this is good.
And this is Remnant, so you can do it during your opponent's... No, it's not quick cast. Never mind.
Oh, and the balance team missed this one. This one can always
this one can
cards.
get the split cards back.
They missed it!
They raise me up, and they lower me back down.
Oh, you know what also?
I'm here for you, buddy.
It's okay.
They also missed the fact that the research results can pull 2 of these from the deck, and then you can bring back your research results...
It's going
do it again.
It's going in circles.
It's crazy. Jeez, I think the only thing that I think
wind to put it on top of your deck.
yeah. Oop. Just keep recycling it. I think to me the only thing that I think would make this card, the fact that it technically in Welser costs 1 is nice. I wish it had quick cast. Like if it had quick cast, I'd be a lot more interested in this card. Because then in Welser,
it doesn't. This card's terrible. I didn't even realize it didn't have quick cast.
Yeah, it does not have quick cast. It's essentially 200 IQ for Welser.
So I said 400 IQ, baby.
That you can cast twice because it has Remnant. So,
yeah.
Moving on, we have a couple.
Heads up.
We have a couple other cards. We have Spirit of the Soul, 2 green, 5/7. When this card is put into a graveyard from the field, put the top card of your Magic Stone deck into the field rested. And then its other mode is 1 green and 2. Put the top card of your Magic Stone deck into play rested. So this is essentially a 2-cost. What was the not blessing? Blessing. It's a 2-cost worse Blessing of Yggdrasil, or a 2-cost little red that doesn't gain stats based on stats and symbol skills based on you having the number of Magic Stones.
But its base side is bigger than little red anyway.
Because
so
she was a 3/3 base stats.
3/4.
3/4, even worse.
Yes, Jeremy soiled it by naming this the Spirit of the Soul instead of the Spirit of the Soil.
Yeah, Spirit of the Soil.
Soiled it.
So
Whatever.
hot take, the fact that this thing actually has better stats than Red Riding Hood honestly makes it worse in my mind, just because it doesn't die as easily.
You're not wrong.
I just get nostalgia bait from this because it reminds me of Sprout from Kaijudo. It's basically the same flavor and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all I got.
Yeah, it's okay. It is a base rare, so I'm not surprised that it's not super great.
The fact that you could cast this essentially for 2 with Welser is actually kind of nice because you can also recover the stone that comes into play with
if it was quick cast.
But
it's not. I wish it was quick cast.
Oh, I wish it was quick cast. That'd be sick if that was quick cast. But the fact that you can do it with Welser is kind of nice. But at the same time, it's like 3 will to do that is really hard.
Nah.
There was a giant from the last
trial
format. Yeah, that was 3 mana, get a 1-drop, ramp a stone, and it was quick cast, and it had this alternate mode of being big, and even that was not like terribly good stands, like exactly altar mirrors at the end, but like besides that, it was never really good. And this is just like an infinitely worse that, and which kind of makes me think this is probably not good.
Yeah, for sure.
Then again, Trial was also in a format with, you know, new Valhalla cards and DBV cards. So
true enough.
Yeah, and it actually did end up at the end of its lifespan. So like maybe, but like the fact that it's just way worse.
I mean, even during its lifespan, I remember that Ryan Miles was using it in Worlds because it was just like if you just ended your turn against the Kaguya mirror because you're playing a format with, you know, Kaguya Fairer spell. You would just sometimes be like, all right, cool.
Ramp stone.
I mean, like, grabbing Lorite back when it could do that was, like, really powerful. And, like, then they lost the Lorite, and then they lost everything. I don't know. All in all, I'm saying that I just don't think this is that good. But, like, maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
It's egregiously bad.
Yeah, and it might just be good enough as, like, just, like, a thing that gets you a stone.
Sure. We have our last card here. This is kind of a hinting at, like, what I said about this idea for Welser of, like, spells comboing into other spells. We have Monstrous Rush.
It's
2 green.
Call of the Wilds.
For those of us who don't play Hearthstone, it is 2 green. If this card is the first chant you played this turn, you get a 7/7 Wind Beast Resonator token with Pierce. If it's the second, that token becomes a 10/10 with Swiftness. And if it's a third chant, you get a 12/12 with Pierce, back to Pierce. And if it's the fourth, you get all 3 of them. So you get a 7/7 with Pierce, a 10/10 with Swiftness, and a 12/12 with Pierce for 2 will if it is the 4th chant that you've played this turn. If you cast it as your 5th chant per turn, congrats, you paid 2 will to do nothing. Don't do that.
No, it says if this is the 4th or subsequent.
Oh, sorry, it does say or subsequent. I can't read. So thankfully. The idea that you're paying 5 chants in a turn, though, is very unlikely.
Toby's saying Persia support. If Persia support is beast, I eat my fucking shoe.
Yeah, no, I don't think this is Persia support at all.
Yeah, we need a lot of like 0 mana stuff for this to really work. Oh, it's chant. Oh,
it's not even like the first card you play for turn. It's just chant. To be perfectly honest, this is the kind of card that for Welser is also kind of a win condition potentially once he's flipped, because the idea being that like you pay 2, you recover 1, it comes back to your hands, you get a token, you pay 2, you get another 1, comes back to your hand.
Let me lay a hot one on you here. I don't feel like Welser really needs a win con after he's flipped. I think that's the win. I think you'll find a way to win.
Yeah, I'm not
everything they've done.
Right, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I just, we'll have to see what other things that Welser has to be able to facilitate playing this card early. But like at first glance, this card is not very good.
I'm going to make a really hot take and say that you're wrong, Jeremy.
Ooh, okay, go for it.
So, real talk, you don't want to play this thing on turn 2. That's already a guarantee.
Really?
You're telling me a 2 mana 7/7 Pierce token's not good enough?
You know what? Listen, maybe, but
okay.
No, but just like
go on
for 2 mana playing. Well, even like going into turn 2, playing a card on your turn before you're untapped during turn 2, and then going into this card, you get a 10/10 Swiftness for 2, and like that's not good. Like.
Let me counter to that point. It is not good. Too many
Wait, no, hold on.
It's not good.
Wait, no, hold on.
Hold on. Let me pull out.
That's my point.
Let me go into my drawer of 1 mana instant speed non-conditional removal. Hold on. Let me just go into my little. There's a lot.
I said removal. I don't want to play a card.
Right, but what I'm saying is a 2-drop 10/10 swiftness resonator that has no protection.
You look at the resonator of Farisha and think, oh yeah, big-bodied resonators are what's gonna win me this format. No, like get real. Like Farisha says, I am the biggest thing and you have no things. Like I do not think.
Are you ready?
That
Are you ready for this play? No, okay.
Matters.
All right, hold on. Okay, you ready for this play? You ready for the biggest stupid play
I'm
you'll ever
ready.
hear?
Good,
All right,
yeah.
cool. Okay, here's the stupid. All right, so you go turn 1, you pass, easy game, easy fight. You go to your opponent's turn. They hard cast out the Farisi on turn 1. They're like, "Hi, you can't play anything against this. What are you gonna do?" You go, "Okay, go to my turn. Before untap, Blazer's Art of Slaughter. You sack it. Go into your turn. Play this card. Get a 10/10. The Farisi is gone. You swing for 10. Easy game, easy life."
Yeah, and then I say like, wow, I'm so dumb that I just did that like into this play here, but also I just kill your 10/10 and now you've thrown away 2 cards to my 2 cards and now we're even again. And so like you still didn't accomplish anything.
How are you killing the 10/10?
Like literally infinite ways. I mean like actually infinite ways.
Yeah, whatever.
Hot takes. Hot takes. Cool art. Hot takes.
Here's what I do. On my recovery step, I play a card, untap, I play Monstrous Rush and my 10/10 into your 10/10.
You can't do that. That's illegal.
Also, you're tapped out from this play on turn 2. It's just, I don't know. And I can't imagine that Welser wants to be tapped out on turn 2, like the way that this.
Don't play this in Welser. Why would you play that in Welser? You play it in, like, I don't know, Resort. I don't know. You get the. Yeah, the first Resort.
Oof.
All I'm gonna say is the 3rd mode only gets Pierce, and that's terrible. I don't want to play this card.
Oh,
yeah.
Can we talk about like? Wait. Which animals have Pierce and which ones have Swiftness?
7 and 12.
Someone brought up the card
like, which
Pierre
animals on
chat,
here?
and like, just how embarrassing is this card into a Pierre? Like, get real.
Pretty embarrassing, yeah. Oh, but real talk, like, so which animal on this artwork has 7/7 Pierce? Which one has 10/10 Swiftness, and which one has the 12/12 Pierce?
The pigs are the Swiftness and the bears the Pierce.
But there's 2 Pierce and 1 Swiftness.
Oh fuck!
The bear's the 12/12 for sure.
But then why does the bear and the pig both have Pierce, but one pig has Swiftness? It doesn't add up. Make it make sense, Falcon. Make it make sense.
Because one's a boar and it's fast and.
Are you telling me bears can't be fast? Have you ever seen a bear run? Those things are fast, dude.
We're diving too deep. We're diving too deep.
The bear is the Swiftness. The small
Once they get out of the
blue pig
bush,
is the
they're very
12/12, and the big red pig is the 7/7.
Little pig is the 12/12.
Oof. On that note, so
What is what animal?
I think as I've been reviewing these, as we've been talking about these cards, Brandon, this is the first time we've talked about cards with you, but Mike and Paul, you and I have been talking about cards a lot. I think I still feel like the card design here still feels a lot like these cards would be very fun to play in a non-competitive environment. I still think I think tonight more than other nights, we've applied a more competitive viewpoint lens than we have in the past. Particularly because we have a full, we have a full suite of people, so it's a lot easier to apply that kind of mindset and kind of back and forth and have that competitive discussion. Outside of that, though, even as we've been reviewing that, I still have very much felt like these cards have the potential to be a lot of fun outside of that environment, which I think is a very good thing. I think Alice Origins as a cluster was very fun, even if you weren't playing at a competitive level. And so to still see that carry into this cluster with these whole new 6 rulers and styles and play styles, and the fact that the rulers definitely feel a lot less like plug and play. This is the deck that you have to play with this ruler. It feels nice. And so it's nice to continue to see that. and it just makes me even more excited to see what we have coming else next. Because at this point in time, we probably have one more day worth of Welser cards, and then we'll see Mikage, and then next week the full set comes out. Usually it's like the Wednesday before pre-release, because 2 weekends from now is pre-release. We'll have the full set. So it's interesting to me that we haven't seen a single card of Ragnarok support. It makes me a little bit curious as to how exactly that's going to work. But we'll have to see. But I know that I'm just as excited to see what kind of fun stuff we can play with Welser, at the last bit of Welser and Mikage, going into this final week of spoilers. I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah, honestly, like, I'm okay whether we have Ragnarok support or not. I think that he's good enough as a ruler to, like, be able to use other people's tricks for himself. But I also think that, like, having a Void guy that just doesn't really do anything other than just have 6 really, really good effects is, like, probably not enough without a little bit of extra support for him. Maybe we see, like, 5 to 7 cards supporting him this set would be nice. But yeah, honestly, yeah, these card designs have been, like, really, really cool from what I've seen. Like, obviously there's going to be some trash, and there's always got to be a little bit of trash, but, like, even between the trash and everything, it's, like, fun trash. I'm actually, like, trying to build really, really stupid decks with these cards, and I think they're letting me do it.
Just give me an answer to the red ruler, and we'll be excited for this set.
Lilius?
Big fair.
Give
us a last day's treasure, whatever.
What are you what in your mind is an answer to Lilius? Like, when you talk about wanting an answer, like,
last days of a power, this Draconoid, Black Moonbeam in another color, or a Black Moonbeam that doesn't require moon. You gain barrier type effect, where, like, you can't be damaged by chance. I mean, like, there's a whole lot of things I'll accept as answers, but, like,
sure.
that red ruler just seems a little bit obscene right now.
Yeah, and that's fair. There's definitely a lot of stuff to be able to look at. I do know that we have a way to give a player barrier right now. I don't remember exactly what the card is. Not Nidhogg. There's another way to do it as well, I think.
But Nidhogg does it.
But Nidhogg does do it. But there is another way. I think there's a way on a spell to do it, but I might be wrong. That might have been New Valhalla Cluster, so I might be wrong there. But
There's
the rune.
Yeah, I know there's the rune. I know there's another card too, but I might be wrong. But I can see what you're talking about. There's definitely some ways to.
Parry? Parry, maybe? Hang on. I'm pretty sure that's a card, right?
It does
prevents the damage a chant would do.
Yeah, to you. It's not quite full barrier.
Yeah.
Really, I just need a last days of the powerless Draconoid. That's all I'm asking for.
That's fair. Just some way to disrupt. I mean, it's the same vein as, like, when Priscia first came out with her friendship counters. Like, we didn't have a way to interact with those friendship counters, and so strength counters offer that same kind of vulnerability of, like, we don't have a way to interact with it, and you just generate natural value with these. So I get your concern there for sure. We'll have to see if something comes out in relation to that. But that is going to be it for us tonight. I hope you guys have all enjoyed it. We've definitely enjoyed being here talking with you. If you liked what we do, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. Consider joining us as a member here on the channel, and share us out with friends. I know that there's a lot of people who are getting into Force of Will, and we try to be a consistent source of content and information and learning for everybody involved. But until next time, this will be myself, Demo73, and I have been joined by Mike Rance.
Hello, goodbye.
Paul Reisman.
Later.
And Brandon Bremont. NSA headquarters. So until next time, office hours are over. Get back to class. Have a good night, everybody.